Joining me now is Matthew Boyes, Executive Director of Solis Minerals. Thanks for joining us today, Matthew.
Yeah, it's a pleasure, Mark. Thanks for having me on.
Let's start with the properties and projects that Solis Minerals owns in the Peruvian coastal copper belt. Can you give us a snapshot of those?
Yeah, for sure. We started off sort of 2 years ago. As you know, we were predominantly a lithium company. And then we have, migrated more into the copper space, or we're actually 100% of the copper space now. And we had around about 13,000 hectares of projects in that western or that coastal porphyry belt in Peru. It's an area which is pretty much underexplored. It hasn't seen a lot of investment from the majors who are all well and truly entrenched into Peru. And so we look at it as an opportunity. It's an area which has a lot of copper, is well endowed, and we started to increase our copper portfolio there. So now we have 41,400 hectares of a really good exploration ground, and some of the projects are well advanced to the point where we're going to be drilling fairly shortly.
Right. You said that the company and the team plans to drill sequentially starting in Q4, starting with Chanzo Al Palo, depending on permitting, as you said. So can you elaborate on the drilling plans and the timeline for those as well?
Yeah, we've got a pipeline of 4 projects. We're starting off with Hilo Norte, and then there'll be, which is Chanzo Al Palo. That one is the most advanced with respect to the permitting phase. Permitting for older tenements in Peru takes quite some time. We're sort of like 10 months into that process now. That one is forecast to be granted in Q4, so it's any time between October and November this year. So that will be the first cab off the rank. And then pretty much sequentially after that, we have one of the projects I really, really like, which is Hilo Este, which is a known copper porphyry project. That's got a very exciting IP and coincident mag anomaly on that one. That will be the next one on in line, early Q1 2025. And then as we speak, we are doing exploration and geophysics and drone mag work on both our new project there, which picked up 6,400 hectares of a project called Guarneros. Now the drone mag's going in, it's actually being undertaken this week, and then target development will start off the back of that, and permitting for drilling for that will go in as well, and that should come up in late Q1. And then on the back of that, we have Cinto, and we've just released some really specky looking samples and some really good numbers from some surface sampling done at Cinto, and these geophysics on it. We're doing some drone mag, which probably most probably will be followed up by IP. And that Cinto project will be drilled, I would say, late Q1, early Q2. So we have sort of a pipeline of 6 months of drilling, or 6 to 7 months of drilling ahead of us. And depending on sort of success on those projects, then we could be drilling for the entire next year, and hopefully we are. And Cinto is one of those projects where it's so close to Toquepala, which is a 4 billion ton deposit. You can see the crusher from standing on top of Cinto. And, I'm really quite excited about these assets. I think we just need those permits, and they're coming, and it'll be, it'll be a really exciting first quarter for us next year and last quarter and this year as well.
All right, very good. Now, Matthew, the head of every exploration company knows there's no substitute for boots on the ground and actually seeing the projects and being on site, which you were fairly recently. What were your main takeaways after your visit?
Look, I'd never been to Peru. I'd been to Brazil 10 times, and I've been focusing on the lithium story, and obviously that's changed. And we have a very experienced director on our board who was, ex First Quantum Minerals, and Mike Parker. And Mike's been looking after Peru. He's done a really fantastic job. And I went over, had a look at the assets, walked over Hilo Este and Cinto. And I was extremely impressed. I've done quite a bit of porphyry copper geology before with assets in Central Asia, and these are really good-looking porphyries. And I was just blown away by the lack of exploration expenditure in the area where we've got the assets. We've got copper and gold outcropping at surface, and there's no work being done. And it's just it's mind-blowing to see all of this opportunity there, and not much investment going into them. So I think the assets look extremely good. It's a very large portfolio in an underexplored area, and so I'm very bullish on this next drill program. I think we've got a real chance of success there.
As far as copper itself, we know it had a good run into May or so, but it's rolled over a bit since then and cooled off, partly reflecting weakness in China. So what's the shorter term? What's your outlook on the longer term in terms of how Solis Minerals can participate in the energy transition and how copper plays into that in terms of the deficits expected into 2030 at least?
Yeah, I wouldn't like to forecast the metal price, but I think, and if the world is serious about this decarbonisation effort and getting and moving into a greener space, you need copper, and it's getting harder and harder to produce copper. You've seen Panama, you've seen issues in Chile. The major copper producers in the world aren't finding a lot more. They're actually finding and producing less. So I think the copper space itself is always going to be valid. It's always, Dr. Copper, as they say, it's a metal that you need it for, just for any sort of infrastructure. You need it for installations of the networks for this decarbonisation effort. It is just a metal that you can't do without. Batteries, power lines, whatever. Whichever way you look at it, copper is always going to be there. And the price is still high. I mean, we're still in a very strong environment. Yeah, the macros have changed slightly, but I think going forward, copper is always going to be, extremely relevant. And it's one of those metals that, there's a few metals out there like your iron, your copper, and other bits and pieces, but those are the ones you just can't move away from. And I think Peru being, it produces 10% of the world's copper and it's underexplored. I think it produces 15 and 20% of the world's copper. And so there's a massive opportunity there. And I think, it is front and center for Solis now. We are a copper exploration company, and we will be for the foreseeable future.
Matthew, you touched on the fact that Solis Minerals was originally set up to be like a Latin Resources 2.0. Chris Scale is the head of that company. Also, your chairman at Solis Minerals. We've talked to him a few times. So, are there any updates on the lithium projects in Brazil?
Nothing material, Mark. We've slowed down our exploration. You've got to make sure that the funds that you have available to you are deployed in the best way possible. And so we think, for a junior explorer in the space at the moment, lithium is not getting a lot of traction as everyone's well aware. Even though M&A is still active, as we've seen with Latin yesterday, having been able to take over a bit for them by Pilbara Minerals. So there is still, it's still a very important space to be in. It's important for us as well. We still have all of our ground and our exploration staff in Brazil, but we're looking at more advanced lithium assets to try and complete an acquisition. Although at the moment, our priority, we did try and emulate what Latin have done there by picking up a big land package in the Borborema area. But the original, the initial exploration results weren't as anywhere near as good as what we expected. And so, we've been refocusing on Minas Gerais and trying to pick up assets down there over the last 6 to 8 months. But with more of a focus on copper, I still think lithium, there is going to be, the market is there, it's not dead. It's going to come back, and it's definitely going to be an important part of the battery sector without a doubt. But it's not a main priority for us at the moment, Mark. We have to prioritize things, and I think for our investors and representing our shareholders the best possible way at the moment, it's investing their money into copper.
Still with M&A, Matthew, you have said that your team, you're always looking at acquisition possibilities. Is there anything new on that front on the copper side?
Look, we've had several opportunities that are still sitting on the table, Mark. Nothing that we can release at the moment. There are some good opportunities still available, some more advanced stage projects which need investment, but do look exceptional. Getting those across the line is always the hard thing. But I think at the moment we don't need to bring in any major new projects. Maybe we've got 40,000 hectares and a pipeline of drilling ahead of us. So, but we will do an acquisition if there's one that comes across the table that looks very interesting. And hopefully one is, but we haven't got anything like in the short term that the company looks like it's going to be tabling or releasing, but we are consistently and constantly reviewing assets that come to us, both in Brazil and in Peru. So we're not just looking at copper in Peru, we're looking at it in Brazil as well. And as you know, Brazil is a large producer of copper. And so I think, those opportunities are constantly kicking tires, as I say, Mark, and hopefully one of these assets comes in, but nothing like I see in the next month or so.
Lastly here, Matthew, as part of the overall investment case for Solis Minerals, you mentioned the pipeline of drilling for the next 6 months or so. So that's clearly a catalyst. Is that sort of the main thing that investors should know about and look for news releases as we go along? Is that sort of the main impetus?
Yeah, for sure, Mark. I think what we're doing now is just building up the story around getting these assets ready to drill. There'll be lead up. We're releasing lead up work to getting those permitting, the IP and mag studies getting completed, and some geochemistry on these assets as well. And then granting of these EIAs, these permits is critical for us. And that's really what's going to be the milestones that kick us off in Q4. And that's what we're waiting for, yeah.
All right. Well, it's a fascinating pivot from lithium to copper. We'll be following closely. Thanks for the update today, Matthew. We'll talk to you again.
Absolute pleasure, Mark, and thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Matthew Boyes, Executive Director at Solis Minerals. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.